Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Atlanta Sports Guys here on the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ, fresh off a Super Bowl victory, according to Spencer Rattler, over the weekend. So shout out to those Tennessee Volunteers making the most of their Super Bowl at home with me in the building against those South Carolina Gamecocks. But we will not be talking about on this very program, because unfortunately the back half of my weekend included a 9:30 kick East Coast time between the Atlanta Falcons and the Jacksonville Jaguars. To recap, what we could call a massacre, an embarrassment across the pond. Max Marcovitch, Paideia Python, is here. Max, good evening, sir. How are you?
Recovering from that, whatever we watched 36 hours ago, or was it 36? Yeah. I'm okay. I'm ready to talk Falcons.
He's okay.
We haven't done a podcast in 2 weeks, and the vibe is just going to be like night and day from that podcast, and I'm almost embarrassed of whatever was said 2 weeks ago.
I'm actually replaying it as the cold open here. Is all of Max's takes from the first 2 weeks of this very show this season, just to add a refresher, because Max was it. Nobody else in this very program were optimistic about where the Falcons were headed after their 2-0 start. Not a one outside of Max Marcovitch, and I can't be any more clear on that front. Also here, 99 The Game's Garrett Chapman. Garrett, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm okay. I just don't know whether or not it was worse watching Desmond Ridder throw pick sixes in real time or on the Toy Story broadcast. I don't know which one was worse. So still trying to get over this. We had a good group therapy line on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, rather, I guess, since it was a 9:30 kick. They made us wake up early for this. But no, we had Falcons flyover on 19 on the game after the game, and we had packed phone lines, and we all talked about it. We talked through it, and I think we grew a little bit. I think it was good for the soul, just to really get everything out on the table. And I guess we're going to do it again. So lots to talk about. Lots of not very good things to talk about. But you know what? There's room for optimism, and I'm going to cling to that like a life raft in the middle of the ocean.
There you go. Well, they're two opposite ends of the spectrum. I'm in the middle, I guess, which makes this podcast very good, because I'm usually one or the other, but right now I'm straddling both sides of the aisle here between what I think of the Falcons and where things are headed versus the positive approach. But Max and Garrett, it seems like, are on different wavelengths here. So let's start. Max, you're just bursting at the seams here, because I can just see you, for the good folks over on youtube.com/Chase Thomas podcast. Max Marcovitch is so riled up because he worked out before he came on this podcast, and the Falcons have driven him to, absolute madness here. They don't call him Mad Max for nothing. So, Max, your biggest sport, like if you're on 99 The Game this morning, doing the morning drive, you're leading with this for the Atlanta Falcons following yesterday. What are you leading it with?
Okay, I'm actually going to lead it with last year. I'm going to lead it with last year. I'm going to say the main mistake that Arthur Smith made was waiting too long to go from Mariota to Ridder last year. If we had 2 months even instead of 1 month of Ridder last year, and we were saying this last year, so this isn't even like something that is revisionist. Like, we all were saying it's time to see what there is with Ridder, because you have to know going into this year what you have with Desmond Ridder. I can't say for certain that he wouldn't have picked him as the starter this year, but I let's just say that if he looked like at the end of last year for 2 months what he looks like this year, I can't imagine they would have gone into the year with him as the starting quarterback. And we all thought it was sensible for him to be the starter this year. I think it was a mistake. He's the worst quarterback in the NFL. I don't think it's controversial at all, actually. I think I sent all that graph that PFF makes every week. That's like PFF score on one axis and then like EPA per play on the other axis. And Desmond Ridder's in his own like neighborhood. It's like Desmond Ridder and like Bryce Young's kind of like can see him from a couple streets over. Then it's like everyone else. Yeah, I mean, the lead is like a team that has the potential to be a good football team is being handicapped by the fact that they have the worst quarterback in the NFL, and that's it. Like I don't, I think we all think the defense is even better than we thought, and we thought that the defense would be improved. I think it's an average to even maybe slightly above average defense. I think Jessie Bates is freaking awesome. That guy's so good. And the offense, like, sure, the offensive line has been a bit of a letdown. I think we all maybe convinced ourselves on this offensive line because we didn't have a drop back passing game last year at all. It was run or play action. That was it. And this year we wanted to be more balanced and have more of a drop back passing game as a normal NFL team should. And the quarterback is incapable of it. And I think that exposes some weaknesses along the line. It's the weakest schedule in the league going forward, but I also think, like, when you look at it now with the way that the offense has played and the way that Ridder's played, like, all of them are losable too. We could say they're all winnable. They are, but they're all losable. Like, I'm not picking the Falcons to beat Houston this weekend. But Houston just wrecked the Steelers. Like, CJ Stroud looks legit. And, I don't know. I just think, like, the cardinal sin of this Desmond Ridder thing not working out is it starts last year. And I worry that they're going to make that same mistake. This team could still win the division. They could be bad and win the division. The Saints look like a mess. I'm not going to buy into this Tampa thing being super real yet. And Carolina's probably, with Chicago, the worst team in the league. So, and Denver. Geez, Denver sucks. But it starts last year, and I worry that it's going to trickle over this year of being too slow on the trigger with the quarterback and maybe being a little bit stubborn. That's my lead.
I hadn't considered the Mariota factor here and going for as long as they did with Mariota, especially because Dez was a multi-year starter, got a bunch of wood to the college level. It wasn't like a Trey Lance situation where he didn't have a lot of football before he got into the league. It is something that, in retrospect, I wonder if you gave Arthur Smith true serum, that if he could do it all over again, he would have done that so that he would have gotten a better track record. I feel like Terry Fontenot for sure would have preferred to know what they had in Desmond Ridder before they rolled him out this year. Garrett, do you share that as your lead-in for today, or do you have a different one you would go with?
I mean, there are a lot of different ways that you can take this. I don't lay this completely at the feet of Desmond Ridder. I think there are a lot of factors involved in this. You got to get him some protection. He's been sacked 11 times in the last 2 games. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, Matt Ryan, we all know what Matt Ryan was. And we know what Matt Ryan was when he didn't have proper protection. He was an average quarterback. He was a very good quarterback who was mitigated to just average status whenever he didn't have a legitimate, like, any level of pass protection. It takes a truly exemplary quarterback to look good when he has somebody sitting in his lap seconds into his snap. That said, he hasn't been good. I mean, he hasn't even been even close to good. Like, Max, you talked about the PFF grades or whatever, and like, yeah, that's true. It's like he just hasn't been good enough, And I'm still at that relaxed stage. Just wait and see. We have a long way to go. It's week 4, and this team's 2-2. So everything is still in front of this team. Now, if we had lost weeks 1 or 2, or both, God forbid, I'd be hitting the panic button, because you start 0-4, then or 1-3, and that completely that's an anchor to a season. But that's not how it happened. If I had told you week 5 you're going to be entering week 5 2-2, I guarantee you both of you guys would have taken that. We talked about it on this podcast, how we were both going to take it. Right? It's just, I think, the way that it happened. He looked good in spurts, and then these last 2 games he's looked terrible, truly terrible, and there's no way around that. He's looked bad. But I've also seen the flashes, and that's why I'm kind of on the fence on Desmond Ridder just in general, because he started 8 games. It's like Matt Ryan had terrible spurts his rookie year. I mean, he had 11 interceptions in a 6-game spread at one point his rookie year, and then he looked terrible his sophomore year. So these sorts of things take some time. And I just have to trust the process because that's just where we are right now. Now, what is his ceiling? Is it game manager? I don't know. He hasn't looked like a game manager in these last two starts, So it's like, if you're bringing in a guy to be a game manager, I don't really like that in the NFL, just in general. I'm fine with it this year because that's where we were as a team. But if you're also going to be a game manager, you sure as hell better ace the managerial part. And as of right now, he's not doing that.
You better manage the game. I mean, the thing is, not everyone who is let's say Desmond Ridder was the 22nd best quarterback in the league. Not everyone who's the 22nd best quarterback in the league is a game manager. I think if they threw in Taylor Heineke right now, and Taylor Heineke has led teams to the playoffs. He's played in a playoff game. Even at his best, he is not a game manager. He's a slinger, and he's going to make some mistakes too. And they need him to be a game manager. And right now, what's killing them is the lack of management. These back-breaking mistakes, the pick six followed by a horrible pick. They could have won that game yesterday.
Yeah,
they could have won that game yesterday, and he didn't give them a chance to. And I think not everyone who's a mediocre quarterback is a game manager, And I think that is what they need. I will say on the sacks part, and I think there are some problems along the offensive line. Sacks isn't that can be a quarterback stat too sometimes. And there are a couple clips going around for me. I'm not gonna pretend like I grinded the all 22 or whatever, but Dez can walk his way into sacks sometimes where it's not needed. He bails pockets really quickly. There was one play that I remember specifically, the first down play, where the pocket was clean and he just bailed straight ahead, barreled ahead, and that counts as a sack. So you're right. The fault is spread. Sacks alone don't always take the fault away from the quarterback. Now, of course, the offensive line has to be better too. I just think man, he didn't give him a chance yesterday. And we're begging for a game manager. We are dying for a game manager. Jacoby Brissett would be awesome. Someone who is just not going to kill you. And I agree the first 2 weeks, he showed some flashes. The first halves of those games, he was pretty terrible too. And the Green Bay game in particular, we remember there were some easy drop. There were 2 easy dropped interceptions. If Jair Alexander, I think he was the one who dropped one of them. If he takes that pick and runs it back, we're having a similar conversation that week. And I it's not the inconsistency or oh, he's checking the ball down too much or oh, he missed pits deep. We can live with those things. It's the horrible, horrible, horrible decisions.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with game manager. Joe Milton's a game manager right now for Tennessee. He's driving the engine. They're 4-1. He had a couple picks Saturday night, but by and large, he has strong command of the offense. He does exactly what he needs to do to get this team moving. More often than not, the offensive line's healthy with Cooper back and company. But I think with the Falcons, it's interesting y'all want a game manager so much where I don't think that is actually really what they need. And part of the reason I think you need Taylor Heineke more than Desmond Ridder right now is because there's not a lot of talent. Jonnu Smith is out-snapping Kyle Pitts significantly this week, and Jonnu was okay. But Drake London he's not really a factor in that regard. And Bijan Robinson can only do so much. And he's actually been really bad in pass pro to this point. And he's a rookie. Maybe he'll get better. But if you have a bad offensive line, if you have a limited wide receiver core that the Falcons have that we talked about coming into the year, I don't think they have the talent to have a game manager at quarterback. I actually think they have to go the other way, where you need someone who can do things outside of structure. You need someone who can make plays with their legs, who can find the way to get to Kyle Pitts when things break down, to force feed Drake London, to throw it up to Matt Collins when he's just got size on somebody. I think for me, it's the opposite. And when Dez isn't even do it, the back-to-back picks were just backbreaking, but I think you need someone who just kind of operates outside of structure, because you're only doing 2 wideout sets so much and you're just kind of playing this ground and pound, and most defenses know exactly what the Falcons are going to throw at them week in, week out. I think they would benefit from somebody like Kyler, somebody like, I don't know, a Lamar Jackson this offseason who does stuff outside of structure to maximize the skill position guys that you have. Because I don't think it's as simple as you get a game manager, Mac Jones. Like Mac Jones, I think would have the same kind of problems that Desmond Ridder's having right now in this system and with the talent around them. I think you need someone who actually does a whole lot of different things. And that's probably Taylor Heineke, who we've seen run around and do stuff with his legs that make plays happen that he did it in Washington a year ago. He's not the long-term answer either. And we also know NFL teams don't make these kind of franchise-altering quarterback trades in the middle of the year. Like, these are your two options. And once you pull the Ridder plug, it's over. The confidence is gone. That's over. You can't go back to Ridder. Like, the guy's already just going through it right now with the last 2 weeks. If you're Arthur Smith, and I'm sure he knows this, you better be dang sure it's not Desmond Ridder and that he is the worst quarterback in the NFC at the very least before you go to Taylor Heineke, because I don't think you can go back to Ridder at that point.
But can we say, sorry, I just want to chime in really quick because Garrett, you made a point about Matt Ryan and like young quarterbacks and it being his 8th start. Like, whether it's fair or not, and I think it is fair, certain guys in the league get the benefit of the doubt and a longer leash than others. And the default assumption for a 3rd-round quarterback is not that he's going to be good. The default assumption is that he's not going to be good. And so the leash on number 3 overall pick Matt Ryan is going to be longer than the leash on 3rd-rounder Desmond Ridder. And that's because the history of the league tells you that a guy like Desmond Ridder is not an NFL starter. And I was cool with him being the starter this year. I was actually pretty encouraged by some of what we saw at the end of last year. But when if you can win the division with an average quarterback and you think you have an average quarterback as your backup, what you're getting is not average. And I agree, like, it probably ruins his confidence, but this is the NFL. Like, I don't know. For Arthur Smith, it's like this could be your, I don't
He's hinging his career on this decision.
For sure.
Yeah.
But
at least his career in Atlanta.
I don't envy the decision. It's a lot easier to be like on Twitter being like, yeah, pull him, he sucks. But that's how the NFL.
You also went with Mariota for way too long. This is kind of on you, Arthur. Like, you kind of made your bed.
So my question that I was going to ask, it was like, hey, if he wasn't a 3rd-round draft pick, we'd be having a different conversation? Absolutely, we would be having a completely different conversation. But at the same time, it's like, this is just the dude we drafted. I mean, the knock on him is that he's a high floor, low ceiling kind of guy. That's just what we have. And I think we said that all over the summer. I know we've said it on the station consistently throughout the spring, up through the summer months, and now through the fall. It's a low ceiling, high floor kind of dude. And right now we are on that floor. And I think we're doing a little bit worse than that. But look, this is also far from a finished product. This is a guy who I think he's going to get better. But it doesn't make me feel good that it looks like he's regressed in the last 2 weeks. He looks like he's lost confidence for whatever reason. And I don't know if that's coaching. I don't know if that's the fact that he's getting hit. I don't know if it's a locker room thing. I have no idea what it is. But I know that his teammates are saying the right things. I mean, Johnny Smith, we talked to Johnny Smith after the game, and Johnny Smith said basically he's the same dude no matter what the score situation is. Like, he has the intangibles. He has that knack of like going and finding his guys and like, hey, let's go, let's keep it up, let's go do this, blah blah blah. That's just the dude that he is. So he's got to cheer for, but it's like at some point you got to let the play on the field do some talking, and he hasn't done that. He said all the right things. I think he's a good locker room guy, and he's a guy I want on the team, but he's given me very little reason to be confident in like that it's gonna get better. I have to think it is, and but I think a lot of it has to do with coaching. A lot of these route concepts have been very simple. We don't really lack a deep threat outside of Matt Collins. And is Matt Collins really the deep threat that you want to have on this team? Like, I know Kyle Pitts has some 4.4 speed, but we haven't seen any of it really. And whenever we see Desmond Ridder unload, he misses the target. So there's no real threat of a downfield option. So teams can just sort of sit back and just be on their heels and rally up, make tackles. It's just Bijan Robinson looking like a freaking stud. That's all we've had so far offensively. I mean, he looked like an animal. Like, there's just like the offense looked bad, but you put a big asterisk mark because Bijan Robinson doesn't. Bijan Robinson looks like an all-pro type of running back. It's just nobody else in this team got the memo.
I think there's the simplicity of the route concepts and things being too fast for Desmond Ridder. Like those things are related.
Yeah.
You know, like when he came in the beginning of last year, it was training wheels. It was all training wheels. And I think even Arthur Smith basically admitted that. And that's how it should have been. That's how it is. But like
first 4 games.
If it's too fast for him right now with what you are saying, which is like pretty simple schematic passing game, you can't just like throw more shit out there and like suddenly he's going to be, you know, an all-pro quarterback. For like they go empty a lot on like third and short, or like
I don't know why they did.
You know, I know, but what the reason you go empty is because it's just easier for the quarterback to like read. If he's making a quick decision, it's like a one-level read. That's why teams go empty in those situations. And even that stuff, it's like you don't trust any of it. You don't trust anything. The only thing you trust is like Bijan Robinson to win his stuff. And like once a game, Drake London's gonna like, you know, jump over somebody and make like a 25-yard catch. Like that's all you can hang your hat on. And it's, I don't know. Like no one was complaining about the lack of a small, speedy receiver in Tennessee when Arthur Smith was cooking up like the third best offense in the league, because that's just not what his offenses have been. But Ryan Tannehill was a whole lot better than Desmond Ridder, and AJ Brown is a different animal, and Derrick Henry.
Yeah, but I mean, at this point, your options are Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke, and the 2024 NFL Draft. Like that's what
JJ McCarthy.
And JJ McCarthy. Well, I mean, we'll see.
I'm not kidding.
The draft is a long way away.
Let's get
I'm
him
not
to throw
ready
more than 12 passes a game.
And I don't think Arthur Smith's not going to bench this guy. Arthur Smith has been big on loyalty the entire time he's been here, and I've respected that about him. Do or die, he's going to stick by his dudes. And but unless Desmond Ridder is just the bottom falls out, which as bad as he's looked, I don't think the bottom's fallen out yet. Like this is not as bad as it can look, which is not very good.
Are you sure?
No, I'm saying this is not as bad as it can look. It can definitely look a lot worse than this.
That's not good.
I've seen some quarterback play where it's bad. I mean, we all have. It's the NFL. I mean, like it's going to expose you.
I mean, he's on his way. What
I'm saying is, unless we see that happen, he's going to be the starter at least until the end of at least the bye week, right? Like that's what, November 11th. He'll be the starting quarterback from now until then.
Ooh.
Dollars to donut. I would be, unless the bottom.
I think I disagree.
Really drops out.
Yeah,
I think I disagree. I think if you see 2 more games of what we saw against Jacksonville, I think that's it. I mean, I really do. Like, I don't, because
he's not a first round pick. I don't think he gets that kind of long term Justin Fields type.
Like, what did Marcus Mariota give you that Desmond Ridder didn't? Like, if you're in games, like I guess he was winning football games, so it's like at the end.
First of all, like there were different expectations last year, and second of all, like you know that Taylor Heineke is an NFL quarterback. Like last year, like you did not know what Desmond Ridder as a rookie. That's a different calculation than veteran Taylor Heineke, who's like done this. And I don't know, like they're going to be in this division race for a while, and like unless they're just everything falls out, and then
that's when you see Taylor Heineke take some steps.
But I think that defeats the whole purpose of Taylor Heineke. The reason you bring in Taylor Heineke is to prevent the bottom from falling out, and before the season gets off the rails, where you're like
specifically just about Desmond. I'm not talking about the season. I'm not talking about everything else. I'm talking about Desmond. If he like the bottom falling out is him throwing multiple interceptions and not giving his team a chance to win. On top of that, taking away the opportunity for the Falcons to win football games. Like if he's making the team actively worse consistently throughout the month of October, he's going to get benched. That's what I mean when I say the bottom falls out. Like
I think Max is right though, where I don't even know if it's 2. Like CJ Stroud's a rookie coming in here. Like you get cooked by Houston this week, and right now I lean towards a Houston win. Houston's looked good the last 2 weeks, and CJ Stroud looks really, really good. D'Amico Ryans is going to win Coach of the Year at this rate. Like he is really good right away. But Yeah, I don't think he's going to get that much longer because I think the whole point of Taylor Heineke is to prevent this kind of downfall and to make the playoffs. Like, I think Arthur Blank has like a, you better make the playoffs, especially when you look around the division right now. You just can't sell Desmond Ridder at this point. The way he's playing, which is the worst quarterback in football through 4 weeks, I don't think you can sell it when you have so many other playmakers around the team. And guys know, these are all vets. They all know. They're seeing it. They understand what's going on around here. I still don't know if Matt Collins was actually mad at Des, but he what?
He said he wasn't after the
game. But I think that was weird. The reason I say I'm still raising an eyebrow about that is I don't think he knew that there was video of him doing it, is my gut. And then it was one of those, like after the fact where it's like, we actually have you on television.
It's pretty incriminating. It's pretty incriminating. It was, when I saw it in real time, I said, what was that?
Me too.
But there wasn't even anybody in the vicinity, right? Like what would be the context outside of that? I just don't know.
He could have been like speaking passionate or something, and it's like sometimes it just comes out, and I don't buy that shit.
He didn't know that he was on camera. Like I think that was one of those, he hadn't seen the tape yet.
Or he got caught, you know.
Drake London sure looked like he was in a sad mood toward the end there, sitting alone on the bench. Like,
I will also say Drake London, like there was the play. So I think did you guys see Mohamed Sanu tweeting?
Mm-mm.
All right, so Mohamed Sanu, like during the game, like everyone was talking about how like, oh, Drake London, throw him the ball, whatever. It's like, but there were a lot of plays where like you have to like come to the ball, you have to attack the ball or something like that. What it tells me though is that Drake London is kind of dejected almost to the point where he's not attacking the ball like he probably should, if that makes sense. Like he just doesn't expect the ball to come to him at any point. So it's like, all right, whatever. And he just sort of like mails it in. And then the ball comes up and he's like, he's falling back instead of like going up and attacking the ball. And that's just what Mohamed Sanu is tweeting about. I mean, take that for what you will, but
I feel that way about Pitts too. I talked about this even 2 weeks ago. Like, I think they're just routes he doesn't bother to finish. I think because
he doesn't think the ball's going to come to him. So it's like, what the hell am I doing?
Sure. And also like, I think that injury, Arthur Smith basically admitted he's not fully healthy yet. And like, I think that's real. And I don't know. It's just a mess because if you're in a passing game where it's essentially not an NFL passing game, like, yeah, you're going to get sick of running,
you're running
all day. Yeah. Like, it's just logic. Yeah, it's not great.
But it's also on the Falcons for not having more of a contingency plan. Like at some point, like Taylor Heineke is, Arthur Smith names him the starter before we even get to offseason activities. He's named the starter in April? Like that gave me a little bit more confidence in this dude. And maybe it's just because I'm on the flagship of the Falcons and it's my job it's not my job to hype them up, but it's like we talk about them so much and we read into all of this stuff and we have to get into all of these random storylines. Maybe we just sort of got bogged down in all of that. It's been dejecting these last 2 weeks. But again, that little raft in the middle of the ocean that I'm going to cling to is that this team's 2-2. Everything's still in front of them. And look, the schedule opens up a lot. You played 2 playoff teams the last 2 weeks. You got exposed. You look bad. But you also looked pretty good the first 2 weeks, at least in spurts, not for full games. But that's all I have to cling to at this point.
I'll push back. I think Jacksonville might not be good, first of all. I think Jacksonville's not very good. And I think Detroit's defense is not very good.
We made their defense look a lot better than it really is.
And they were also down multiple guys in that game and 6 points and 7 points. Like, it's one thing if you got carved up by Trevor Lawrence and, that Lions offense. That's not what happened. Like, that's not all what happened. The defense showed out in those games and the offense gave you no chance. And I think that is a red flag. It matters how you win and how you lose. And I would feel a whole lot better if, the offense kept them in games and, the Lions offense, which is one of the best in the league, carved them up. And Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley carved them up. I would feel better about this team now than if they scored 13 points in 2 weeks in games that were winnable. You don't – it's not even that they lost. It's just, how they've played. And we felt that, by the way, in parts of the first 2 games too. That's part of it. They were down by 10 to Green Bay. They played horrible in the first half of that game. They were down at one point to Carolina, who might be the worst team in the league. It's 2-2. You're right. Like we said before the year, 2-2 is just fine after 4, and it is just fine if they correct these things. But the way that they've gotten to 2-2 is more worrisome than it could have been.
It's an important week this week. It's a very important week this week. They need to come out and look good, and I think they need to silence some doubters very much. And I think they need to silence some of their own doubts in their own head, because they seem to be doubting a lot of things in that locker room right now.
It's a bummer too, because I would love to be talking about how I think Ryan Nielsen might be that dude.
He's been great. David Onyemata has also been very good too. I mean, there are a lot of bright spots. There are a lot of team. It's just when you have a quarterback controversy, you have quarterback issues, it overshadows everything. You know, like I talked to so Joe Patrick is our Falcons insider. So he's up at Flowery Branch every single day, basically. And he posted all of our audio for the day. It's like, yeah, just full disclosure, every single clip in there is about Desmond Ridder. Nothing else. There's literally nothing else from the press conference that we got outside of Desmond Ridder. That was it. And there are so many good things about this team right now that we are just not talking about. Like, look, what are we? We're 30 minutes into this podcast. We've talked about Desmond Ridder and Arthur Smith and Desmond Ridder, and then back to Desmond Ridder. Like, that's what we've done. And that is the state of this team right now. We have so many good things. Bijan Robinson looks like an all-pro. You have potential Pro Bowlers on defense. You have Jessie Bates, who might be the best safety in football. Like, AJ Terrell looked pretty good outside of like a busted coverage or two. Like, all in all, like, this has been a very good team. You have a bad quarterback, and the quarterback play has been just terrible. And we spent the first 30 minutes of this podcast talking about it.
I think there's a lot of things we could still harp on that's maybe positive. Like, you kind of talked about the defense, but I mean, which position group has impressed you since we did not pod last week? Over the last 2 weeks, which position group is impressing you more than maybe you had previously anticipated?
I think Jessie Bates might be like the best safety in the league. I PFF graded him has him graded as the number 1 safety in the NFL right now. I didn't understand how good he was. And I think the secondary in general might actually be a strength. Which, like, we were sitting here worried about the corners. I'm not really that worried about the corners. Granted, like, I mean, Ridley, Kirk, Ingram is a pretty solid, formidable passing game, and they did a good job there. They had the one bust on Ridley, which was a bummer, but they pretty could easily had a sack there. You know, Laporta carved him up. That's whatever, you know, that'll happen. You know, I think the defensive line has been good-ish. I think the interior is a strength of the team. I think the linebackers have been pretty good. It sucks losing Troy Anderson. That's a huge bummer.
But Landman's been better.
Landman's that dude. You heard it here first.
You were on that.
I was on that. I was on that very early. That's it. That's all I can muster. I mean, Bijan, Bijan is like
Bijan is the highlight for me. Like, he's the dude, you know. And I would say running back, just in general. I mean, they got silenced pretty effectively by Detroit, and that was really disheartening, just in general, because I really saw this team hanging their hat. Like, when nothing else worked, I was like, hey, at least they can run the damn ball. They didn't run the ball at all. Like, they didn't do it effectively at all against Detroit, you know. And like, there was that time last year where the Falcons were in a deficit, they were in a hole, and then they ran the ball 16 times in a row last year. Where's that? Like, this offense looks like it's struggling right now, and it seems like they're not able to do that. Is that Desmond too? Like,
so let's talk about that, because I think I know why, or at least I have a theory as to why. So last year, Mariota was bad. We know that. But his air yards per throw, he was like one of the like one of the deepest average depth of target quarterbacks in the NFL. So
Mhm.
like you at least had to be prepared for the fact that he was going to launch it. And the defenses couldn't just sit on these routes. With Ridder, like that's not his thing. Like he has one of the lowest depth of target
Yeah.
in the NFL. And these defenses are just they don't respect anything beyond 10 yards, right? So like there's just a spacing issue. And they would probably love to get the running game started and then work on, play action from there, but they have to not because there's zero respect for the passing game beyond like 6-yard curls. That's my theory, at least. Like, and the other part of it is Mariota was like a very active part of the running game. So that's just harder to defend than Ridder, who is they had the read option that he scored on against Green Bay. Like that was cool, but he's not Mariota with his legs.
No, and I think that has a lot to do with it just in general. There's been a lot of disheartening things about this team this year. There've been a lot of positives, I will say. I think the defensive line's been pretty good. I think that's been highlighted by the fact that David Onyemata's looked fantastic. I mean, the dude he's already got a sack and a half. He's got 8 tackles. I mean, like, look, he's been effective in run defense, and he's also been able to get after the passer. I mean, the defensive line just in general has been a positive, and that's not something that we've been able to say for a very long time in Atlanta.
Well, I think that's the highlight for me, right, is that Terry Fontenot has actually nailed free agency on the defensive side. That was
his knock. Like, that was his thing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't say knock. It was the inverse of that. Like, that was the thing that he hung his hat on at New Orleans, is the fact that he was the guy who comes in and makes all the free agency acquisitions. He was the pro scout. And it's something he's done very effectively here. And he did it when he was on a hamstring budget. And it was one of the reasons why I was very bullish about him in general as a general manager. I think his drafting acumen has improved. I think it still has a little ways to go because, I mean, like I think you're almost 1 for 3 in your first 3 draft picks in the first round. I'm not going to say that yet, but it's not looking terribly good for your first pick with Kyle Pitts. And that's not a knock on Kyle, the player. It's a knock on Kyle, the system fit to the Atlanta Falcons. And the fact that you look and you see a Penei Sewell, you see a Micah Parsons, you see everybody else. It's like his drafting skills that need a little bit of improvement. And look, I mean, like sometimes that just takes time, and like he's like any coach, he's like any player. It's like sometimes you just need experience being the head guy and making the final decisions. But as far as his free agency acquisitions, he's done a marvelous job. I think Jeff Okudah had a pretty solid day yesterday, and the first time that we actually saw him play. And I think he's a high risk, low reward, or opposite, the low risk, high reward type of player. And Terry Fontenot has been good at finding those kinds of guys and signing to a 1-year deal and just sort of making it work.
I will say just one quick note on Terry Fontenot drafting. The London Ebiketie Ridder Troy Anderson start that we were all kind of high on, like I was high on like 4 weeks ago, sure looks a whole lot worse now than it did then.
Yeah.
I was pretty jazzed about that draft a month ago. I'm not like trading up for Arnold Ebiketie at the beginning of the second round and having him basically be like a situational pass rusher is a pretty big miss. That isn't really getting talked about at all, and I don't understand why. D'Angelo Malone,
who has been playing well.
Yeah, right. D'Angelo Malone in that same draft, by the way, can't find the field. That's bad. That's not good, and we know his first draft was pretty bad. So like, it's not a great feeling.
He also kept Younghoe around for this year. And that I said in the offseason, he should have been cut. Like I saw it bubbling up in the offseason, the number change. There were so many bad omens for Koo.
Like 10th on the list of complaints right now.
It is, but
10th? That's not even top 25, dude.
Yeah,
he's not good. It's over.
Fine.
It's over.
We have bigger problems than the
kicker. Ebiketie having 2 tackles, and those were his only.
He's playing like 25% of the snaps. It's bad. It's really bad.
Also, Taquan Graham's been quietly really bad this year too, which is another recent draft pick.
that. He was like a fifth rounder.
No, he was like third round, wasn't he?
Who'd you say?
Hold on, Taquan Graham was a third rounder, wasn't he?
TQ was like a 4th or 5th round draft pick. He was
fourth at worst. Hold on, he was definitely not fifth. Hold on, what was Taquan Graham? He was.
I got him right here.
Oh, never mind, I was wrong. Max is right. He was fifth round. That was my bad.
W. There we go.
I thought he was third.
Is Max back to number 1 or what?
He's back to number 1, just for his own sanity, because the man is really going through it.
Nate Landman shout. That's the highlight of the year so far. Do either of you think they're going to beat Houston on Sunday?
No.
Yes. I'm bullish, and I stay bullish.
I love Garrett's optimism. That's why we have to have Garrett to balance us out. Like, Garrett's optimistic about it. And you know what it is, too? Garrett's watched a lot of Braves baseball lately, and he's just feeling really good about where the Braves are right now, and it's just sprinkling over onto the Falcons. And then the combination, I'm worried about Garrett because I'm worried about what's going to happen the next couple of weeks when, we already saw the little bit with John Collins. Like, it's exciting to play with a team that likes to move the ball and play with one another. And DeAndre Hunter has that really weird answer to what he was working on this summer in his workout videos. And then you have Quinn Snyder having to try and get this group to all play the Quinn Snyder way. So the combination of Falcons football with Desmond Ridder and the Atlanta Hawks trying not to implode early in the year is going to be trying. So hopefully the Braves have a long run here, because I'm more nervous each and every day, and the season hasn't even started yet with the Hawks.
I will say,
kind of the spotless mind, like I just wipe my memory as best I can.
Every single weekend I sit down. Every single weekend I sit down and I watch Michigan on Saturday and I watch the Falcons on Sunday. And if you ask me which of those quarterbacks I would rather have for my team right now, it would be J.J. McCarthy. I would rather have J.J. McCarthy play quarterback for the Falcons next Sunday than Desmond Ridder. That's it.
Desmond Ridder has broken this man.
I had season tickets through the Joey Harrington year. Like, I've seen it all, but like, this is worse.
Joey Harrington was tough. That was tough.
I was more of a Chris Redman guy myself.
He was kind of nice.
What was the name of the
Max Marcovitch was like 7 years old when Chris Redman was under center for the Atlanta Falcons.
I was there. David Garrard. I remember the David Garrard era.
He was never a Falcon.
He was.
Was he really?
For a cup of coffee in 2007.
Hold on.
They traded him. They traded for him because Joey Harrington was such
David Garrard, Joey Harrington.
It was so bad.
Hold on. There's no picture of him in a Falcons uniform. This man never suited up for the Falcons.
They brought it. No, what was the name of the guy then? 2007.
Are you talking about Byron Leftwich?
Oh, no, it was Byron Leftwich.
Oh my goodness! I was like, "What are you talking about?" David Garrard was never a Falcon. Y'all were like, "I was like, what are you talking about?"
Week 9 or something in 2007, and was just a disaster.
I remember all of that. No, I remember Byron Leftwich, the Atlanta Falcon Byron Leftwich. I was like, what are y'all talking about? Am I losing my mind? When was David Garrard a Falcon?
Now Byron Leftwich,
and it's 4.8 yards per attempt with the Falcons.
He went 0-2 as the starter, and he had 279 yards in 2 games.
Oh, man.
He had one touchdown and 2 interceptions. Oh, God, this is bad.
No, that whole season was one of the worst. But then the Falcons, like we talked about, it's like then you just stumble into Matt Ryan and the rest is history. But they really didn't have that big of a blip.
Joey Harrington nearly had a 1-to-1 TD to interception ratio. I don't think Desmond is Desmond Ridder at 1-to-1.
Come on. Oh, don't do that.
I would take that year Joey Harrington. I mean, it's kind of funny we did the same thing with Marcus Mariota, another Oregon Duck journeyman.
Would you rather have Mariota
this year?
No. Y'all are insane, man.
I said no.
Crazy.
I don't know why that's insane. The offense was better last year.
Look, he had two bad games. Let's breathe.
Why was the offense better?
You also got to remember their talent's not there. Like, that's the other part of it, where it's not like there's like this unlocked thing where Bryce Young struggles and you're like, oh, I could still see him figuring it out with the worst core around him in the NFL. You don't have that upside with Desmond Ridder. You're kind of like, like this is really bad now, but like I don't think it can get that much better. Like you kept saying high floor.
Let's give him 2 more weeks. We'll see what we can say. If he looks bad next week,
if he looks bad against Houston at home,
he's undefeated at home. He's 4-0 at home.
That's true.
Yes.
Let's ride that hot hand. Next game is at home. Let's make it 5-0, and then we'll come back and have the same podcast.
Houston at home, I am.
If you lose to Houston, ugly. If they lose to Houston, like the Steelers just lost to Houston, pitchforks will come out.
If we score fewer than I'll put the number at 17 points. I'll keep it low. If we score fewer than 17 points, it's Heineke.
Yeah, I wouldn't say. Yeah, well, we'll see. I just think they need a big performance this weekend, and if it's another bad performance, if he plays like he did on Sunday or on Sunday morning, on this coming Sunday against the Texans, and no, then it's probably not it. Because who do we have after that?
Commanders, Bucks, Titans.
We have the worst schedule in terms of like it's winnable. Like this schedule is terrible.
Also, like those teams are better than the Commanders, the Bucks, and the Titans. The Titans just beat the Bengals by 24. The Bucks are 3-1 and just ripped.
Ryan Tannehill has a lower QB rating than Desmond Ridder does.
But you don't need it when Derrick Henry's out here throwing dimes in the backfield.
Yeah, the best quarterback for them is Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
It's a road game, so we're going to lose that one.
I'm very excited. I think it's a tipping point. I can't wait for the pod next Monday because I think it's we're either this is it. Desmond Ridder's done.
Pulls out on Sunday, then I will be. You'll hear it. Frustrated Garrett is not a fun Garrett.
No,
I might bring popcorn next week.
There you go.
We'll see.
Don't forget, folks, Mookie Betts, NL Cy Young, as Garrett Chapman has said for the NL Cy Young, NL MVP, as he said for the last few weeks, privately in the group chat, where I was like, Garrett, that doesn't seem like an Atlanta Braves thing to. They don't call him Garrett Plashke Chapman for nothing.
On Twitter for about 5 seconds. They've already seen how ludicrous the idea that Mookie Betts is even going to get a vote for MVP.
He deserves a vote. Mookie Betts is really good. He's in the
first place
conversation.
Second place great. It's a unanimous MVP. It's unanimous. There's no question in my mind. Mookie Betts played second base and he opened up some options for the Dodgers, and that's fantastic. This is Sports Radio Garrett.
Have you ever listened to Sports Radio Garrett on the weekend? This is what he leads with. This is a different Garrett Chapman than we get on this podcast. He just started going down that rabbit hole.
Garrett is a fun Garrett to be. I get fired up on my show, man.
I can feel it starting. That's what I'm saying. I can see it coming. And we're wrapping up the pod. We're not getting this thing started, so we're shutting that down right now.
The next step is not winning the MVP. It's unanimous MVP. Period. Mookie has no claim.
Period.
If Mookie was in Atlanta and Ronald Acuna was out in Los Angeles, it's a unanimous MVP and it was over.
We lost him. This was my fault. He's getting progressive.
I talked myself
into Atlanta sports guys, man. Come on.
He's getting fired up.
Would this team be the fourth best team in the NFC with Kirk Cousins? Like maybe.
I love Kirk Cousins.
It just stinks though that you can't make a deadline deal. That's what stinks is that the NFL doesn't do this. Other than Carson Palmer, this is not something that ever happens.
There's a guy just sitting out there.
You're not doing it for a quarterback.
He helped lead a team to a Super Bowl, sitting out there in free agency. Carson Wentz, come on down.
You're going to ruin Garrett Chapman. Garrett Chapman, Max Marcovitch, always a pleasure. I'll talk to y'all next week.